Hey, what are you doing? Are you filming me right now?
I was standing in my own backyard wearing swim trunks, cleaning leaves out of my pool, when I noticed something strange moving above my privacy fence. At first I thought it was a bird. Then I saw fingers, human fingers, gripping the top of my 7-foot cedar fence. And right above them, a phone camera pointed directly at me. I froze. The phone vanished instantly. Then I heard the voice I already knew too well. "Oh my God, this is disgusting!" That voice belonged to Denise Cartwright, our HOA president, a woman who treated the neighborhood like her personal kingdom. I walked toward the fence slowly, heart pounding. "Denise," I said calmly, "are you seriously taking photos over my fence?" "You should be ashamed of yourself," she shouted back dramatically. "Children live here." I looked around my completely enclosed backyard. No children, no neighbors, no possible way anyone could even see inside unless they deliberately climbed up to look, which she had just done. Then came the sentence that changed everything. I already called 911. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was insane. She had secretly photographed me over my own privacy fence, then called the police claiming I was the predator. And somehow, that wasn't even the worst part. Because 20 minutes later, 3 police cruisers pulled up outside my house, and Denise walked out holding a folder full of printed photographs like she was about to win a court case. What she didn't know was that my entire property had security cameras, including one pointed directly at the fence she climbed. And by the end of that afternoon, the woman who tried to paint me as a criminal was standing in handcuffs crying in front of the entire neighborhood. But to understand how it got that far, you need to understand who Denise Cartwright really was. I moved into Pine Hollow Estates 3 years earlier after selling my contracting business. At 52 years old, I wanted peace. That was the dream. Quiet neighborhoods, small fishing lake, tree-lined streets. No city noise, no drama. The house itself sat on the corner lot with a large backyard surrounded by a tall cedar privacy fence that had been there long before I moved in. And for the first 2 weeks, everything seemed perfect. Then Denise knocked on my door, not to welcome me, to complain. "You parked your truck too close to the curb," she said before even introducing herself. I remember blinking at her. My truck? Yes. The HOA guidelines require vehicles to be centered. Centered. Not crooked, not blocking traffic, centered. That was my first interaction with Denise Cartwright. And somehow, things got worse from there. She monitored everyone. Grass height, mailbox paint, holiday decorations, window blinds. I once got a written warning because my trash can was visible from the street for an excessive amount of time. It had been there for 40 minutes. Most neighbors hated her, but nobody challenged her because Denise thrived on conflict. She loved fines, loved hearings, loved threatening people with legal action. But with me, it became personal, because unlike everyone else, I refused to bow to her. The first real clash happened 6 months after I moved in. I installed security cameras around my property after some teenagers vandalized mailboxes nearby. Totally legal, totally visible, but Denise lost her mind. "You can't record the neighborhood." "I'm recording my property," I corrected. "You're invading people's privacy." The irony of that statement would age beautifully later. I showed her exactly where the cameras pointed. My driveway, my front yard, my backyard gates, nothing illegal. But Denise hated losing arguments. From that point forward, she started targeting me constantly. Violation notices appeared almost weekly. One claimed my backyard umbrella was visually aggressive. Another claimed my grill emitted excessive smoke odors. Then came the inspections. She'd walk past my house slowly, pretending to jog while staring into my yard. Sometimes she stopped completely, watching, judging, looking for something, anything. At first I ignored it, but eventually even my neighbors started noticing. One afternoon, my next-door neighbor, Carlos, walked over while I was trimming hedges. "You know Denise is obsessed with your house, right?" I laughed. "Trust me, I know." "No," he said seriously. "I mean obsessed." He told me she talked about me during HOA meetings constantly, called me the problem resident, claimed I was lowering community standards. Apparently she especially hated my backyard. Why? Because I actually used it. I grilled outside, swam in the pool, played classic rock on weekends, had friends over for barbecues. Nothing loud, nothing illegal, just living. Meanwhile, Denise acted like the neighborhood should function like a silent retirement monastery. Things escalated during the summer. That year was brutally hot. Most evenings I'd cool off by swimming laps in my pool after sunset. Again, completely private. Tall fence, locked gates, no visibility from neighboring homes. Or so I thought. One night I noticed movement near the back corner of my yard. A shadow. Quick, gone. I checked the cameras the next morning. Nothing obvious. But 2 days later it happened again. This time I caught a glimpse of someone stepping away from the fence. That uneasy feeling settled into my stomach. I upgraded my backyard cameras the next day. Higher resolution, motion alerts, night vision, and that decision ended up saving me. Because Denise wasn't just watching anymore, she was escalating. And I had no idea how far she was willing to go. The first real incident happened on a Saturday morning. I was cleaning my pool when I heard a faint clicking sound, like a phone camera. I looked up, nothing, then another click. I walked slowly toward the fence line. That's when I saw it. A phone sticking just barely above the fence boards, gone in half a second. But I saw it. I immediately checked the security footage afterward, and there she was, Denise, standing on a small folding step stool behind my fence, holding her phone over the top, taking pictures into my backyard. I stared at the footage in disbelief. What kind of person does that? I considered confronting her immediately. Instead, I saved the footage to multiple drives. Something told me this wasn't over, and I was right, because 2 days later I received an official HOA notice. Resident reported for indecent conduct visible to neighboring properties. I laughed out loud reading it. Indecent conduct? I was swimming in my own fenced backyard. Apparently Denise attached photographs as evidence. Photos she obtained by climbing high enough to shoot over my privacy fence. That's when I realized this wasn't neighborhood drama anymore. This was harassment. I attended the HOA meeting that Thursday. Denise sat at the front like a queen holding court. When my turn came, she smiled smugly. We've received multiple complaints regarding inappropriate behavior in your backyard. Really? I asked. How exactly are people seeing into a 7-foot privacy fence? Silence. A few neighbors exchanged awkward looks. Denise cleared her throat. That isn't relevant. It's extremely relevant, I replied. Then I plugged my laptop into the projector and played the footage. The room went dead silent. There was Denise, balanced on a stool, stretching over my fence, taking pictures. Someone in the back actually gasped. Denise's face turned bright red. That's taken out of context. Which part? I asked calmly. The trespassing, the surveillance, or the secret photography? People started whispering immediately. The HOA board members looked horrified. One older man leaned toward Denise. You said these photos were taken from your property line. They were, she snapped. No, I interrupted. They were taken by intentionally invading my privacy. Denise stood up suddenly. You can't expose me like this. I almost laughed at the absurdity. You literally photographed me in my backyard. That should have ended it. It would have ended for any reasonable person. But Denise wasn't reasonable. She was embarrassed. And embarrassed narcissists become dangerous. Over the next week, things got insane. She started posting in the neighborhood Facebook group about suspicious behavior, never naming me directly, but making it obvious. Then came the rumors. Apparently I was sunbathing naked. I wasn't. Apparently children had seen me. Impossible. Apparently multiple residents felt unsafe. Complete fiction. Most neighbors ignored her, but a few people bought into the drama. One mother avoided eye contact when passing my house. Another neighbor stopped waving entirely. Denise was building a narrative, and she was determined to make me the villain. Then came the day everything exploded. It was a Sunday afternoon, 96 degrees outside. I was alone in my backyard cleaning pool filters wearing swim trunks. That's it. No music, no drinking, no guests. Completely normal. Then I heard rustling behind the fence again. I looked up just in time to see a phone rise slowly above the boards. This time I reacted immediately. I walked straight toward it. The phone disappeared. Then Denise shouted dramatically, "Oh my God!" I reached the fence. Denise, are you taking photos again? You're exposing yourself. In my fenced backyard? You're disgusting. I shook my head in disbelief. You are literally spying on me. Then came the words that made my blood boil. I called 911. I stared at the fence silently. You called emergency services because I exist in my own backyard? You're a public threat. public, behind a locked fence. At that moment, I realized something terrifying. Denise genuinely believed her own lies. And people like that are dangerous because they stop recognizing reality. 10 minutes later, police arrived. Not one cruiser, 3, lights flashing, neighbors emerging from houses, curtains moving, people watching, exactly the spectacle Denise wanted. She marched outside carrying printed photographs in a manila folder, crying dramatically, pointing toward me. One officer approached cautiously. "Sir, we received reports of indecent exposure." I took a slow breath. "Officer, I'm in swim trunks, in my fenced backyard." He looked confused already. Denise rushed over. "She's escalating," one officer muttered under his breath to another. "She's been exposing herself repeatedly." "Himself," I corrected flatly. Denise shoved photos toward the officers triumphantly. "These are proof." The older officer looked at the images, then frowned. "These were taken over the fence?" "She was visible." "He," I corrected again. The officer looked at the 7-foot fence, then back at Denise, then at me standing there fully clothed except for swim trunks, and I saw the exact second he realized something was off. "Sir," he asked carefully, "do you have security cameras?" "I do." "Can we see the footage?" Denise's confidence cracked instantly. We went inside my house. 2 officers followed me into the security room. Denise tried to enter too. The officer blocked her. "You can wait outside, ma'am." For the first time all day, she looked nervous. I pulled up the backyard footage, crystal clear, time-stamped, HD quality. There was Denise, dragging a folding stool behind my fence, climbing onto it, leaning over, taking photos repeatedly. At one point, she nearly fell trying to get a better angle. One officer actually muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." Then the footage showed today's incident. Me cleaning the pool, Denise secretly photographing over the fence, then calling 911 while continuing to record. The room fell silent. The younger officer rubbed his forehead. "So, she manufactured the entire complaint." "Looks that way," I said quietly. The older officer rewound the footage again. "Do you want to press charges?" That question hit me harder than expected. Because honestly, at that point I just wanted peace. But then I remembered the rumors, the Facebook accusations, the humiliation, the neighbors staring at me like I was dangerous, all because this woman weaponized lies. "Yes," I said finally. "I do." Outside, Denise was still performing for the neighbors, crying loudly, telling people she was protecting the community. Then the officers walked out, and everything changed instantly. "Ma'am," the older officer said firmly, "we need to speak with you." Her expression shifted immediately. "What about him?" "We reviewed the footage. He's deleting evidence," she snapped. "No, ma'am," the officer interrupted. "We observed you unlawfully recording over a privacy barrier and making a false emergency report." The entire street went silent. Neighbors froze mid-conversation. Denise blinked rapidly. "What?" "You intentionally photographed into a private enclosed yard." "I was gathering evidence." "You were invading privacy." Her face lost color instantly. Then came the line that completely shattered her composure. "Please place your hands behind your back." The entire neighborhood collectively gasped. "No!" Denise shouted. "This is ridiculous!" But the officers stayed calm. "You are being detained pending charges related to false reporting and unlawful surveillance." She started panicking, actually panicking, pointing at me. "He manipulated the footage." One officer calmly replied, "Ma'am, the footage has multiple synchronized camera angles." That ended her argument immediately. As they placed handcuffs on her, I noticed something shocking. Nobody defended her, not one neighbor. Not even the people who believed her rumors, because deep down, everyone knew Denise was unstable. They were just afraid to challenge her, until now. And once the fear broke, everything collapsed. Neighbors started talking openly. One woman admitted Denise photographed her teenage son skateboarding to file HOA complaints. Another man revealed Denise once peeked through his side gate during a barbecue. Carlos walked over shaking his head. She finally pushed too far. Denise burst into tears as officers escorted her to the cruiser. Then she screamed the sentence every narcissist eventually screams when consequences arrive. "This isn't fair." Fair. The woman secretly photographing people over fences was crying about fairness. But karma wasn't finished with Denise yet, because the next morning, the internet got involved. By sunrise, someone had uploaded cell phone footage of Denise's arrest to the neighborhood Facebook page. Then it spread. Fast, comments exploded. People shared stories for hours. Apparently Denise had been harassing residents for years. Selective enforcement, trespassing accusations, surveillance, threats, power trips. But because she was HOA president, nobody wanted the fight. Until now. Now people felt safe speaking up, and the stories got ugly. One elderly widow revealed Denise fined her repeatedly while she was undergoing chemotherapy because her lawn maintenance was delayed. Another resident claimed Denise entered their backyard without permission to photograph a shed. Someone even posted screenshots of Denise encouraging neighbors to monitor suspicious households. The entire community turned overnight. Within 48 hours, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. Attendance was massive. Standing room only. People who never attended HOA meetings suddenly showed up furious. And Denise? She wasn't there. Because she'd spent the previous night in county jail before posting bond. The board president looked exhausted as the meeting began. We are here to address recent events involving Denise Cartwright. People erupted immediately. Stories poured out non-stop. Complaints, evidence, photos, emails, threats. One man slammed a stack of violation letters onto the table. She fined me because my American flag was too loud. What does that even mean? Another resident stood up. She photographed my daughters in our driveway. The room exploded. The board members looked horrified. Then came the moment nobody expected. Carlos stood up holding a folder. I have copies of over 60 complaints Denise filed against residents that were never officially processed. Why? Someone asked. Because she made most of them up herself. Chaos. Absolute chaos. The board called for silence repeatedly. Then they reviewed my footage publicly. Again. On the projector. In front of everyone. You could hear people muttering in disbelief, watching Denise climb the stool like a cartoon burglar. By the end of the meeting, the vote was unanimous. Denise Cartwright was removed as HOA president effective immediately, but the fallout kept growing. Because once police completed their investigation, they discovered something worse. Denise hadn't just made false reports about me. She'd made multiple exaggerated or fabricated 911 calls over the years involving neighbors she disliked. Noise complaints, suspicious activity, indecency claims, trespassing accusations, many unsupported, some provably false. The county prosecutor took that very seriously, especially after my footage showed clear intentional deception. Local news picked up the story next. Not nationally, but enough. HOA president arrested after secret backyard surveillance. The headline spread everywhere locally, and Denise became radioactive overnight. Then came the lawsuits, plural. At least 4 residents filed civil complaints within 2 weeks. Trespassing, harassment, privacy violations, selective enforcement. One couple even discovered Denise had photographed through gaps in their fence during pool parties. The HOA itself tried distancing from her immediately. Too late. Property values dipped temporarily just from the publicity. Meanwhile, my own life slowly returned to normal. Neighbors who once avoided me started apologizing. One woman admitted, I believed her at first. I figured, I replied honestly. That's the scary part, she said quietly. She sounded convincing. Exactly, that was the real danger, not just the spying, the manipulation. People like Denise weaponize certainty. They accuse loudly enough that others stop questioning facts. If my cameras hadn't recorded everything, my life could have been destroyed by rumors alone. That realization haunted me for weeks. Then one evening, about a month later, there was a knock at my door. I opened it expecting a package delivery. Instead, Denise stood there. No makeup, no designer clothes, no arrogance. She looked exhausted, defeated. I just want to talk, she said quietly. Every instinct told me to close the door, but curiosity won, so I stepped outside. For a moment she just stared at the ground. Then she said something I never expected. I think I lost control. I crossed my arms silently. My husband left, she continued. The board removed me. People hate me. I didn't respond. Because consequences aren't tragedies. They're results. Then she looked up with tears in her eyes. I really thought I was protecting the neighborhood. There it was. The justification. The thing people tell themselves to excuse crossing lines. I answered carefully. No, Denise. You liked controlling people. There's a difference. That hit her hard, because deep down, she knew it was true. She started crying quietly. I never thought it would go this far. Neither did I. But actions have momentum, and eventually momentum crashes into reality. After a long silence, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I studied her face, trying to decide whether it was genuine remorse or just regret for getting caught. Honestly, I still don't know. But I did know one thing. Trust was gone forever, so I simply nodded once. Then I went back inside and closed the door. 6 months later, Pine Hollow Estates felt like a completely different neighborhood. The new HOA board cut violation notices by nearly 90%. Meetings became shorter, friendlier, actually useful. Neighbors started talking again instead of hiding from each other. Barbecues returned. Kids played outside more often. It turned out Denise hadn't been protecting the community. She'd been suffocating it. As for me, I finally got the peace I moved there for in the first place. No more anonymous complaints, no more fake accusations, no more spying over fences. I upgraded my backyard anyway. Taller trees, better lighting, even more cameras. Not because I felt paranoid, because I understood something now. Privacy only matters when someone tries to take it from you. The legal case wrapped up quietly. Denise accepted a plea deal involving false reporting and harassment-related charges. No jail time beyond initial detention, probation, mandatory counseling, community service, and permanent resignation from the HOA. Honestly, that was enough for me. I didn't need revenge. I needed truth. And eventually the truth came out publicly. That mattered more. One afternoon, Carlos came over while I grilled burgers. "You know what the craziest part is?" he asked. "What?" "If you didn't have cameras, half this neighborhood would still think you were guilty." That sentence stuck with me, because he was right. Evidence mattered, facts mattered. Without proof, the loudest person often wins. And Denise had counted on that. She thought confidence would beat reality. She thought outrage would beat evidence. She thought nobody would question the woman screaming predator. But cameras don't care about emotions. They just record truth. About a year after everything happened, I heard Denise move to another county. No idea where. No idea what she's doing now. And honestly, I don't care. Because this story stopped being about Denise a long time ago. It became about boundaries, about privacy, about how quickly lies can spread when someone speaks with enough authority, and about why protecting yourself matters, especially today. People think danger always looks obvious. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes danger looks like a smiling HOA president carrying a clipboard. Sometimes it looks like someone claiming they're protecting the community, right before they destroy someone else's peace to feed their own ego. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's that some people don't want harmony. They want control. And the moment you refuse to surrender that control, they escalate. They gossip, they accuse, they perform. Because attention is power to people like that. But here's the thing Denise never understood. Truth doesn't panic. Truth waits. And eventually, truth speaks for itself. That 7-foot fence was supposed to protect my privacy. But in the end, it exposed hers. So if you're dealing with someone who twists stories, document everything. Stay calm. Keep receipts. Because the loudest person in the neighborhood isn't always the victim. Sometimes, they're the one standing on a folding stool with a camera in their hand. And when the truth finally comes down, it hits hard. Fade out.